Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Outdated Wrestling Hour with Bob Smith and Joe Puccio. This episode's all about wrestling conventions. You know, those gatherings where everybody gets together and has autographs. Sometimes there's a wrestling card. You get your picture taken with your favorites. Nah, back in my day, we had no such thing as wrestling conventions. You know what a wrestling convention was? You waited by the back door of the arena and wait, and wait, and wait. Finally, somebody would come out and you go, "Hey, Beefy McGarrigle, you're my favorite wrestler." And then he'd go, "Pooh, tobacco juice all over your sneakers." It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Well, at least I knew who the bad guys were. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. My name is Bob Smith. You know me from the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine that I worked for in the 80s and 90s. Joe Puccio, my co-host. Do you realize someone posted on Facebook, actually it was either Twitter or Threads or Instagram, I don't remember where they posted it, an editorial I wrote in 1992 complaining just the same way I do now. So they posted it for the whole world to see. People responded to it. You should check it out. I'm complaining about the advent of the steroid era and how wrestling had been in the hard news at the time, and it was changing, and it wasn't as good as it used to be. And does it sound any different than the way I do now?
Nothing's changed.
No.
I didn't see that yet, but I'm gonna definitely have to seek that out.
Yeah, it's in my thread on Facebook, and that goes for the rest of y'all too. I do have a tendency to spout off on Facebook about wrestling. So if you find Bob Smith on Facebook, I'm the one that sings with BB King on the lead page. Check it out. If you don't follow me on Facebook, you can read a lot of interesting comments about wrestling. I have a tendency to watch, let's say, Monday Night Raw, and then just spout off on something stupid that I saw, and I usually get a lot of responses to it. And sometimes they evolve into interesting conversations with other fans and wrestling people that I know. So please check us out on Facebook if you get an opportunity to. But no, my work lives on thanks to some really groovy people out there who keep posting my stuff over and over again on the social medias. So I appreciate that.
Very cool. I remember when early on in my fandom, when I really started my writing, I've always been a writer, I've always loved to write. I remember I did a feature for Wade Keller. It wasn't for the Pro Wrestling Torch. It was for one of the Torches. He had a sister publication at the time. I forget what it was called. But anyway, he took guest editorials from readers, and I sent one in, and it was all about, bitching as well about people not taking wrestling seriously. And, dealing with people calling it fake and just, oh, it's so stupid. And why do you watch that stuff? And this was back, fairly, this was a long time ago. Even as a teenager, that used to get to me. That annoyed me at the time. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to write an article about it. And I never thought that he would publish it. I just, was like, I'll do it, whatever. And I did it. And a few weeks later, it showed up, and that was one of the things that really excited me. I was like, wow, look at that. It's so cool to see your name in print,
Yes, it is cool to see your name in print. Although I got used to it real fast when I was working in the newspaper industry. It's like, and after that, I really didn't take any ego into it until an old friend of mine visited me in New York City for the first time in ages. It's like somebody from upstate. And he's like, well, what are you doing these days? I'll show you. And I walked into a Hudson News, and my name was in over 20 magazines I just went around the music. Here's the wrestling section. Here's the music section. Here's the sports section. And my name was in all these different magazines because I was freelancing too. And they went, wow. So I guess I'm somewhat accomplished, Although, most of my biggest accolades happened in my newspaper days when I won a couple of pretty serious journalism awards back in the old days when I didn't even know what I was doing. And I won a couple of awards. So I guess, trust me when I say this, hard work pays off. It is what it is. Sometimes if you work something hard enough, you get good at it. And if you get good at it, you can make a career out of it. That's the whole thing. Don't be afraid of getting your fingernails dirty no matter what you do. I got some advice for young people too, seriously, because I've had like 3 different careers and have done well at all of them. Even if the people around you are slobs and not nice and you think you're working harder than everybody else, that just means you're doing a better job than everybody else. And it will pay off for you later in life. I guarantee it. If you're dependable, if you're trustworthy, if you put your nose to the grindstone, it will pay off later in life because your actions will become second nature to you. You will be a hard worker without feeling that you're working hard. You will get opportunities based on your steadiness. I really mean this. You know, we've reached a situation where everybody feels like they're being kind of screwed around at their places of employment and things aren't fair and this and that. I say, as long as somebody takes a gun out and shoots you,
Yeah.
keep going. Do the best you can, even if you don't like your boss or your coworkers. Do the very best you can. I promise you it will pay off. Do you agree with that, Joe, or am I just a wild-eyed dreamer?
I agree with it. It's tough to adhere to that, sometimes, as we all know.
It
But
is.
I do agree. I just know it's tough for everyone. It's tough, well, about our situations, our, employment and the obstacles we face and the issues that we're dealing with. But I think what you say is valid. It's true. It just sometimes it doesn't hurt to try to, we all need a little reminder, I think, sometimes.
I think the message that I'm saying needs to be shouted out by more people too, because it's like when you put your head on the pillow at night, you want to be able to sleep soundly.
Yeah.
If you did right by everybody, and that's part of your mindset, do right by people, do the best you can. You will sleep soundly. You will sleep better. You will feel good about yourself, even if others don't notice. It's like when I see a janitor and I pass him and I go, "Excuse me, sir." I want him to know he's my equal. He may be a janitor, I may be whatever the hell I am. It's not even the point. "Excuse me, sir." Everybody sir with me because you know what? We're all equals, no matter what our strata is in life. And maybe that sir will make him feel good for 5 seconds. Maybe it won't. Maybe he won't notice it. But you know what? At least I can try. Fast food workers, I have a tendency to really be nice to, even if they suck, because God knows that's a hard job and they never get paid and they work terrible hours. As the comedian Richard Jenny once said, I come home smelling like a fry from head to foot, right? I mean, it's like you don't know what they go through just to give you a burger and a Coke and some French fries. Treat them with respect. Treat restaurant workers with respect. They're working hard to try to feed you.
Definitely. Definitely. I agree with that. And, even sort of like fast food, but even like we go to a lot of diners, my wife and I, especially diners out here on Long Island, and we are like we always say, like, we just treat the waiters and the waitresses so well. And we always joke around about it with each other, like they must love us as customers, because not only do we always try to be respectful and just try to, we understand they could be having a tough day, and that's a tough job. That's something, by the way, I would never ever be able to do, is be a waiter at one of these busy diners. But even just like, not giving them a hard time, and just like, I don't know, not making a mess. Like, you drop something on the floor, pick it up, or whatever the case is, when you're done eating, put your, maybe, like, I think sometimes they're a little surprised that we'll actually stack our plate on top of each other when we're done eating. They're like, oh, like they're a little shocked at that, but we're just like, why not? I mean, how does it hurt, to be nice?
I swear this is true. As we sit and talk on this, we're recording on a Sunday afternoon, guys. Now, this is the truth. This afternoon, before I came to the studio, we went out and went to our favorite local pizzeria. And I always get pizza every Sunday, but you know what? Today I decided to have something a little different. It was right when they first opened up at about 11 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I'll have the Italian sub sandwich, or the Italian, yes, Italian submarine sandwich. So I wait for it, and, we're sitting at a table, and here comes the guy delivering the sandwich, and he spilled it. He got to the table, and somehow the whole sandwich fell off from the plate onto my table. I'm not going to eat that, obviously, because it's touched the tabletop. We don't know how clean the tabletop is. And he goes, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh, man, I'm really sorry. I'm like, don't sweat it, man. It's fine. He says, I'll replace it. I said, I know you will. Everything is good. Don't sweat it. Do whatever you have to do. He said, oh, thank you so much. And he came back and he says, "Again, I'm really sorry." I said, "There's absolutely no reason to be sorry." I said, "I appreciate it. Thank you very much." That's how I treat people in those
Yep.
situations.
Absolutely.
Haven't you, though, seen people go off with, "My thing is undercooked," or "This isn't to my liking," or "You forgot the ketchup"?
Right. Right. Right.
You mean to tell me your life is so devoid of meaning that you're gonna berate somebody for forgetting a little cup full of ketchup? Are you serious? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I see it all the time.
We the same. Yeah. Like I said, my wife and I will be sitting there and we'll look at the other customers. We'll just be like, you'll hear someone complaining about something. It's like, that's that what they're complaining about? It's just so weird. It's like, I don't know. People are weird.
They are. It reminds me of the old joke about the Catskills, like, the Jewish Alps, they call it, and it's like they're sitting down and the wife turns to the husband and goes, "The food is like poison in such small portions." It's like
Right.
it's one of
Right.
my favorite liners of all time because that's the attitude a lot of people have. You know what? Those people handling my food, I don't want them messing with it when I
That's
treat them rude, right? Right?
another great point. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't want the wrong kind of tang in my Coca-Cola, you know what I'm saying?
So to speak. Yeah.
All right, enough of this oddball banter. All I'm trying to say, folks, is come on, let's be good to each other. Seriously. And work hard. I'm not saying work until you can't see. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's like, to me, to achieve, I love the feeling when I work a hard day and I know I did a good job. Don't you? At the end of the day, you go, "Oh man, I nailed it today."
Hmm.
That's how you get ahead in life, I think. But hey, you know what? I am also old now, and people would notice stuff like hard work when I was younger. Now I'm not so sure that people, in these big companies are just a number, or they're the first ones to get cut when the sales go down 1/2 of 1%, so they fire 20 people. You know what I'm saying? It's like the world just seems a little crueler now, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Certainly does.
Okay, well, now that everybody shut the podcast off over all this doom and gloom, let's talk about wrestling.
There you go.
Let's talk about wrestling conventions because our guests today are Steve Gennarelli and get this, the combo of Steve Gennarelli and Howard Baum.
Oh,
And they're
nice.
going to talk about their history with wrestling conventions, which leads to my obvious next question. Do you go to wrestling conventions? Have you been to any? What do you think of them?
I have not gone to one in few years now, several years. I can't offhand. I'm actually, yeah, I think the last one I went to was probably either last year or the year before. It was a one-off. It was in New Jersey, and it was one of those 1980s wrestling conventions put on by Tommy Fierro, who does them every year. Went to that one really just as an excuse to hang out with a couple of friends that wanted to go, a little road trip, just decided to go, got a couple of interviews, things like that, met a few people, and that was really it. Although, other than that, I really make it a point I don't go much anymore, but I definitely did when I was younger, when I was a teenager. Even when I was in my 20s, I made it a point to go to them pretty often. As far as nowadays, I would say the reason why I really stopped, it's simply because, well, there's a couple of reasons. One reason is because a lot of the talent that I would like to meet are simply not around any longer. I mean, nowadays the conventions, you're seeing guys that were around in the 2000s, in the 90s, and nothing against them, but I'm not as interested in seeing these guys. A lot of them I met before. I'm just not as interested. But when I was growing up, it was a little different. I got to meet guys like Bruno Sammartino and superstar Billy Graham and some of the guys that I wouldn't have had a chance to meet otherwise. So I think that's a big reason. And as you would expect, the other reason is just cost. These things have gotten really, really out of hand, just like everything else has, tickets and such. Hey, look, at my age, I'm not exactly looking forward to paying $100 to get a picture with Joe Hendry. It's just it's not something that's really in my budget. And I don't think. But hey, if I was a kid, I probably would want to do it, but not at this point.
Mm. I have been to more than my fair share of conventions, starting with the John Rizzi conventions in, I guess, in the late 80s, right?
Right. That was my initial ones as well.
Right. Wow, we probably bumped into each other.
Yep.
Um, I've been to my share. I'll just talk about the one I went to in Philadelphia, one of the Rob Feinstein
Yep.
conventions 2 years ago. I decided to do it from the inside. I got a table, right? I went and got a table. It was in Philly at the 2300 Arena, and they had a card later that night. But overall, I didn't sell anything, although I was surrounded by wrestlers and wrestling personalities and stuff like that. I just sort of let people know about the podcast at that point. So it was a massive success in my eyes, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the magic of Philadelphia. Here comes Bill Apter. I didn't even know he was going to be there. Of course, he lives near Philly. And I ended up recording, for the show, and I had a nice conversation with him. And here comes Todd Gordon, who I hadn't seen in person in 30 years. I had him on the show, but I saw him after that point. Fantastic. Had a great time seeing him. Talking with the Blue Meanie, talking with other people. Meeting Greg Gagne for the first time. Of all people, I never got to meet Greg Gagne, and I finally did, and that was a thrill for me. There was a lot of great old-timer people. They had them separated. Like, they had the newer stars in the front of the arena, and in the back, where the ring was going to be later on, they had Demolition and the Powers of Pain. Lita was there. A couple of Samoan stars were there. Leilani Kai, I think, was there, and Judy Grable, whoever the lady wrestlers, a couple of the older wrestlers. Forgive me if I've got the names wrong. But just on and on it went. Matt Cardona was there, and I got to kibitz with a lot of these people, and then just generally spread the word about the podcast. I thought it was an invaluable experience. I really do. Not only did I see some old friends I didn't know I was going to bump into, but I also made some new friends. Right next to my left was Nick Clark, the wrestling artist who I've had on the show twice. He was such an interesting guy who knew his stuff. Plus, he's such a fantastic artist. I wanted to tell the world about what he does, So overall, it was just a happy experience. The only problem was the drive back from Philadelphia, New York took 5.5 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Oh, God. It's just, Oh, my gosh. We both live in the New York metropolitan. You can't get here from here anymore.
That's why I just said, I made that joke about New Jersey being a road trip. It is a road trip because if you go at the wrong time, forget it. It is going to be a 3-4 hour trip.
This is why when I go on any place that I have to be that's important, I go the night before. I've reached that point. I'll go in the pitch darkness to avoid daytime traffic or, rush hour traffic. I don't want to do it. So, I'll kvetch later. I don't have any more to complain about. But no, my experiences with conventions have been kind of cool. Another fun time I had last year, this last year, they had a mini convention that opened up before the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame ceremony in Albany. And they had a little, get together. Anybody who paid a little extra could come to this and meet all these wrestlers. And it was very relaxed. And there were podcasters there. And I remember, it was great. I got to meet the officials, Seth Turner and the crew who was doing the Hall of Fame. I got to hang out with Tony Atlas for the first time in 30 years. Mary Savoldi hugged me, put me in a bear hug. I couldn't believe it, because you remember I worked for him a little bit. Tito Santana, I had never met before. He was there. The Godfather was there. I met Kayla Sparks there, who I still think is going to be a major star. What are you doing? Sign her. Folks, sign her. She's got it all. Sign her. Anyway, who else did I just a bunch of people. I forgive me if I left anybody else out that was there, but I had a wonderful time. Another thing, because they're loose, they're friendly. The wrestlers are a lot more accommodating than you might think they would be. We tend to conflate their characters that we remember on television for their actual personalities. Most times, the meaner and nastier they were the ring, the nicer they are as real people. Again, when you can have a nice, positive experience like that, I have to recommend wrestling conventions. I think they're a lot of fun.
They are. And some of the more modern conventions actually take it to another level. They do more than just the meet and greets, more than just the wrestlers. A lot of them will do Q&As.
Yeah.
Some of them even go so far as to do live wrestling at the shows. So not with the old timers, obviously, but they'll have independent shows that are in conjunction with the conventions, and those are a lot of fun. I've been to those, several years ago. So I think sometimes you can get more, and I think that's smart to do as well. And one of the things I've always loved, and this goes back to even like you mentioned the Erezi conventions back in the day. I used to really enjoy the interaction between the talent themselves back then.
Yes, right.
I love seeing that. And I think the most famous one from back then was the first meeting of Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko in many years, who had so much heat. And I know they came together, and that was just so cool to see. and to be there. And even as a I was fairly young at the time, but even though I was young, I was always into wrestling history and history in general. And just knowing that that was happening, I just thought that was such a cool thing to see. And I remember there was another little thing it's funny you remember. I think Killer Kowalski was there. He was sitting in the lounge of the hotel at one point because we had gotten a hotel, me and my friend, and we got a room and we stayed over for that first convention. Lou Albano, I think, just walked in, and then him and Albano were just talking. They were just, I don't even remember what they were talking about, but at the time I was just standing there and I was like, this is so cool. I was like, I'm getting to see Lou Albano and Killer Kowalski have a conversation about, I don't know, what they had for breakfast. Just something just so random, like you didn't think you were going to see that. I remember Nikolai Volkov came into the hotel at night. It was like 11 o'clock the night before the convention that I was there. And I was on the payphone. Yes, payphone back then. I was on a payphone with my buddy, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I turn around and I see Nikolai Volkov walk in. And all I remember telling my friend is, I'm sorry, I got to go. I'll call you back. And I hung up. And I just went and I chased him and I said, hey, Mr. Volkov, I said, I'm a big fan. I said, I just want to talk to you. And he was great. He stopped and he accommodated me and we spoke for a couple minutes about whatever it was. And then that was it. So those memories are great, but yeah, they're a lot of fun. And I definitely there was a time when I really, really did enjoy them.
I'm looking forward to doing one this year. I don't know when it's going to be. I have to choose it. And hopefully, I was going to go to the recent Tri-State. Something got in the way there and I can't go. But so in any event, we say, if there's a wrestling convention near you, go. You will be shocked at the amount of wonderful memories it will inspire within you. You will also be shocked at how cool a lot of wrestlers are. And listen, not all wrestlers are the same. Not all people are the same. Some will be more accommodating than others, but it's still worth it to go out and shake some hands and take some pictures and, have a little fun. But I agree with you. Some of the major ones, Joe, are getting kind of crazy with the autograph fees and stuff like that. I'm a little bit disappointed in hearing what I'm hearing from some quarters, but I guarantee you they're not all like that. Go to the websites of all these. If you see a name of an event that's coming up, research it before you go so you don't have any surprises. Go to the website that's involved with it. Find out what the prices are. Find out what the admission price are. And don't walk in cold because you might be shocked. So you can make up your mind if you educate yourself before you go to a wrestling convention or make a phone call. There's always a way to get a hold of the promoters of these things and make sure you know what you're getting into before you go. Then you can decide whether you're going to have a good time or not.
Very well said. Yeah, that's true. And another thing is, there's going to be a lot of, especially at these conventions these days, there's a lot of talent there. You're not going to just see, 5 or 6 guys. So, you pick and choose, you probably don't want to meet everyone. You're probably not interested in everyone. You probably don't have the budget, if you want to pay for autographs or whatever the case is. So, you have your favorites. And even if you don't want to actually purchase something, you don't want to purchase an autograph, or you don't want to purchase a photo, it doesn't hurt just to go and just to mingle and just talk to these guys and see what's going on, or look at the merch tables.
Merch tables are great at these things. If you're into wrestling figurines or dolls, whatever they call them, I've never have been. I had a couple of them in the day, but if you're into wrestling memorabilia, old magazines, sometimes, God, the one I went in Philadelphia, this guy had the biggest selection of figurines I've ever seen. It was incredible. And a lot of times the old timer wrestlers will bring photographs from their old school, what they look like back in the day, and they will sign them for you. And again, most of them are accommodating. If you can't afford every wrestler, but you want to say, if as you make your way around, there's usually a circle with tables, and you can make your way around. Wait for it to be quiet and go, hey, hi, how are you? And wave, and they will talk to you. You don't have to pay to get a hello from these folks.
Exactly.
Because they're there to meet and greet just the same way you're there to meet too. So I recommend them. And we're going to find out more about these conventions from Steve and from Howard and their experiences with these things. And we'll be back in just a little bit. Joe, good to see you. Generation X Wire, I'm sure, is doing just great.
It's doing great. Yeah. Either on the site now or coming up. Did the Luna Vachon documentary. Did a nice one on Barry Horowitz recently. Good interview with him about his book. So yeah, lots of stuff, wrestling and otherwise.
Excellent. Listen, continued happiness and success to you, my friend. I hope everything is going well, as much as it's going well for me. We will be back in just a couple of minutes. Get yourself, what should they drink, Joe, if they're going to listen to this show about wrestling conventions? They should have a Kool-Aid or Flavor Aid or something soft. And a boiled Frank, not a fried Frank. Because usually when you go to the wrestling conventions, they have boiled Frankfurters. They do not have a grill.
There you go.
Have you noticed that?
I
Most
can't
of the wrestling
say
events have boiled Franks and not grilled Franks.
interesting. Okay.
Only a fat slob like me would know these things. We'll be back in a minute. It's your one-stop shop. Great wrestling. WrestleCopia.com, where you'll find an armload of great wrestling podcasts. Some are weekly, some are not. All of them are great. Ray Russell brings WrestleCopia to you, including his own show, The Wrestling Memory Grenade. There's Regional Wrestling, The Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Puro Wrestling Academy, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the Other Shit Podcast, the Captain's Corner Podcast, and much, much more. Great hosts, great shows. I guarantee you'll learn something every time you tune in to the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Where do you find all these shows? How about starting it this way? Just log on to WrestleCopia.com. There's nothing else like it anywhere. As I sit here looking in my professional podcasting studio, I have two guests, and according to what I'm looking at, my guests are guest and guest. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what they're listed as in my little electronic studio here. But I've got two of the most knowledgeable wrestling people you would ever hope to bump into in an elevator. First of all, one of my good buddies in the business right now, a world-class podcaster, a smart guy, and one of the nicest people I've met since starting my podcasting journey is Steve Gennarelli of the Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam podcast. Welcome back, Steve.
Bob, it's great to be here with you, and I'm so glad we have a special guest tonight.
We do have a special guest. He was just on our show a few weeks ago. He was on our show about 6 months ago, and I'm glad to welcome back someone who, amongst my listeners, I have verbally been told, I love that guy. He was great twice. His name's Howard Baum, so there's a nice compliment for you to start things. Now, my listeners like you.
Hey, you were hanging out at the institution again?
Yeah, right down the road.
I knew I wasn't going to be the first one introduced when you were talking about all that nice guy stuff.
I won't mention it, but I happen to live about 5 miles from an institution. I really do, and
From
it's
where?
like, oh my god, you from an institution, from a psychiatric
That's
facility.
my dream. Which one?
Oh, I can't. I don't want to mention it. I don't want to besmirch the
man.
fine people who I see crossing the street going in and out of there.
I want
But it's like,
to tour that Allegheny lunatic asylum. That's like my bucket list. Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, home of the Beast Man. Not the asylum, just the state.
you're over my head, dude. You're way over my head. Well, anyway, we are going to talk ostensibly tonight about I'm talking to wrestling fans. Why am I using these $100 words? I am talking about.
Go for it.
Yes, we are. We're going to be talking about wrestling conventions, the good, bad, and ugly about them. But first, Howard, you had some thoughts before I hit the record button. Why don't we delve into your very interesting subject that you wanted to talk about?
Okay, well, I pay attention through the ether. I didn't watch WrestleMania. I did catch the Hall of Fame because it happened to be on YouTube. And I hate when this happens because it makes me look like such a Timu Jim Cornette. But I just have to get this out of the way. When I was watching the beginning with McAfee and Cole, and I swear to God, and Cornette said this, and he beat me to it, but I swear to you people, I was thinking the same thing. It looks like like a TED Talk or an industrial presentation for your stockholders or something. It's like one of those things that Steve Jobs used to be to psych his people up. You know, it's like these two guys were on stage, no chemistry, looked horrible, no podium, whole thing looked horrible. And I have to say, I just told the guys it would be nice to jump into a little bit of current stuff, and then we're going to segue into some real meat and potatoes stuff in a minute. But it all ties together. And I just have to say, I don't pay that much attention to what's going on in particular by design, but I have to say that looked like the worst. I saw the entire Hall of Fame. That looked horrendous. It was horrendous. It was awful. As far as the show, let me now dovetail this into, and this is bittersweet because last time we were on, I asked for questions. I go, I'm going to be on the Bob Smith show. Would anybody like to hear anything in particular for me to blab on about? And somebody was nice enough to write down a question, and instead of his name, I have Q, colon, and a line where his name should be because I forgot to write it in. But you know who you are? It's going to be on the internet, and I'll mention it next time. But he says, Howard, let me ask you a question. How would you compare and contrast the career and the title change and the finishing of the story of Cody and Dusty Rhodes? How would I? Well, I'm going to open the floor up to you guys about that subject, but I will make that short and sweet. I do not feel that we would ever have heard the name Cody Rhodes if it wasn't for his dad. And that is the beginning, middle, and end of my Cody Rhodes rant.
Well, Howard, I would say this, that he went to AEW, was one of the people that gave birth to this thing called AEW, which half of us hate and half of us love, I guess. He went there and nobody appreciated him. Nobody cared for him. So Vince gave him another opportunity, and he comes back, and all of a sudden he's the child that everybody loves, and he gets a main event push, and everybody wants him to finish Dusty's story. And I thought last year's WrestleMania, where he won the belt, was the cheesiest match I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I heard he lost to Cena last week, which I predicted that. But I like Cody, but I mean, he's not exactly he's not the most exciting wrestler in the world. We'll leave it at that.
And the presumption, sorry, Bob, I know you're about to talk, but you know, my synapses aren't what they used to be. You got to take them where you can get them. The presumption is that he somehow deserves this. What makes him so extraordinary? Why did you like Roddy Piper? Why did you get a chill up your spine when Buzz Sawyer or Dick Slater or Terry Funk came in the ring? If Cody was not named Rhodes, who would he be commensurate with? The Miz, maybe? Maybe.
There's a factor you're forgetting about. The smarks who watch AEW, all right? They had orgasms when he re-signed with the WWE. Or they pitched a fit because he had the audacity to leave. It's the fan mindset that none of the three of us have. It's the us versus them of the WWE versus AEW feud, which when he decided to come back, same as when Punk came back, the whole world shook because, oh my God, he left us. Oh my God, he's coming. Now he's our favorite for leaving them. You know, it's like had nothing to do with wrestling. It had all to do with the us versus them of the imaginary WWE versus AEW feud that doesn't exist, only in the hearts and minds of Mr. Neckbeard and Miss Nose Ring. Okay? I rest my case on that. Now, the John Cena versus Cody Rhodes main event at WrestleMania made me, I watched it, I shut my TV off, I stared at my ceiling, and the first thought in my mind, and I talked to Steve about this before, the first thought in my mind is, the hell with it. I'm going to stop this podcast immediately. You know, I'm serious. I wanted to quit this podcast and concentrate on my Entertainment Hour podcast. That's how much I enjoyed it. It just exposed the business. The worst match since Moondog Rex versus the worst match I've seen since Moondog Rex versus
Samoan number 2.
No. Rufus R. Freight Train Jones in the World Wrestling Council in a baseball stadium.
Oh my God.
Battling all over the place when neither of them could walk, basically. Yeah, okay. All I know is that it made no sense. The build made no sense. The match made no sense. Here's another problem. Cody Rhodes, wrestling interviews should be done with somebody holding a microphone in your face, not this thing that WWE does where everybody jumps in the ring and starts a show and talks for 20 minutes. Right. And then somebody comes to argue with them and they talk for another 20 minutes. And the next thing you know, the first match starts at 9:15. What have they all said? Nothing. Basically what they said is, I don't like you and I don't like you. But it takes them an hour to do it. I can't take it anymore. It's awful. There, I ranted. Oh, but anyway, The Dusty versus Cody thing. You know why? One without the other. Cody Rhodes is a product of the AEW WWE war.
Mm-hmm.
Dusty Rhodes is one of the all-time legends. There's a big difference. You can't compare Cody Rhodes to Dusty Rhodes. You can't. I don't care how popular he is right now.
And this speaks to the larger issue. And now WWE is only exacerbating it. It wasn't bad enough that they had Tough Enough. Now they have this new show about going into the writer's room. In addition to the future legends and Michigas, it's the promoter's fault. And the only way professional wrestling is ever going to come back is if you take the MMA template. Terry Funk said this to me. I said it to Tyree Pride when he was looking to start something back up in the early 90s when I saw the writing on the wall. No great magi me, but I go, everything is so fake and out in the open now. You have got to have guys come out like it used to be. One light over the ring, guys who look like they can kick somebody's ass, come down the aisle. You don't know who's good. You don't know who's bad. Quasi MMA. And you press reset on professional wrestling right there. From there, you develop your personalities and everything else. And the guys that you sign can't work for any of these bullshit independent promotions where they're going to dress up like a bunny rabbit or come out of a Cadbury freaking egg or God knows what else. It's the promoter's fault that the most important thing about it is not the star. It's not about the match. It's about, and we discussed this last time, the inner workings and the politics of the business that these people are not qualified to understand in the least. And I'm not either. Some better than most, but the majority of the fans know. And it would be paramount to, in the old days, two schmageggies sitting in the third row at a Georgia All-South show promoted by Ann Gunkel and saying, ever since Ann's taken the book, or, excuse me, is it Larry Hamilton that has the book now, Assassin #1, I find that Tommy Siegler is not receiving the right kind of push. He is second from the bottom at best, not third from the bottom, working Roberto Soto. No. You know what made a wrestling fan in the old days? Is goddamn Steve Kern, Bob Roop, Dick Slater, anybody from your childhoods looking like they don't like each other and having the announcer say, hey guys, these two guys are going to fight next week. Joe LeDuc just threw Jerry Lawler out of the ring and broke his head. See you next week. See you Monday night. I mean, everyone is such a frustrated actor.
They're swole theater kids.
Thank you. It's my own quote, and I couldn't even think of it. Thank you. Swole theater kids. Swole goddamn theater kids. And the promoters egg it on. It was up to the promoters 30 years ago to keep a lid on that shit, because this is exactly what the forefathers feared, and it happened, and wrestling died.
But to Bob Smith's point, they WWE was on a roll. They were pushing the young people like the LA Knights. They were pushing, and they're pushing Braun Breaker. All of a sudden, John Cena, maybe his movies aren't doing that well, and he says, "I want to have one final run. I'll give you one more year." So they put everything behind John Cena, who nobody cares about anymore. I mean, he was doing jobs to Vince's boy 2 or 3 years ago. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to care about him. I mean, it's just, he's old hat. I mean, I love the guy. He's a great guy, but, his time has come and gone.
Well, let me just emphasize the point you just made. LA Knight was the hottest thing since sliced bread about 2 years, 18 months ago.
Right.
And here comes Randy Orton out of the blue, who won his first title in 2002 or something like that. Seriously. And it's like, well, we got to push, Knight back a little bit so we make room for Orton again. Now the same thing. You had the Braun Breakers of the world and the younger stars and Jacob Fatu and all these people. But the main event is Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Right. When any of these others would have been a more compelling match and a better show. But, it's always old timers day. They always rely on the old hands. I was so excited about WWE at the end of last year's WrestleMania. At the end of this year's WrestleMania, I wanted to pitch my old LED TV out into the cold night Queen's air because I just really hated that show.
This is the last thing I have to say about WrestleMania because it's the only salient point I could possibly make. But I think it's plainly obvious that what The Rock did here is a prime example of what Dusty and Hogan used to do. And I don't know how more people aren't pointing it out. Look how good this show would be with me. Now I'm not going to be on it. And look how it sucked without me.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what he was orchestrating right there.
Absolutely.
Well,
that's
all
exactly
I know is
what he was orchestrating right there.
The Rock starts the angle and then disappears. Cena becomes an instant heel, and his reasons for becoming a heel make no sense.
Right.
After 25 years, all of a sudden he's full of bitterness and rancor.
There was no,
it's
there was
phony.
no passion.
There's no passion in it. It's like he just turned a corner. But the rationale, the fact that The Rock disappeared makes no sense.
Right.
The fact that Travis Scott is involved at all makes no sense.
And what was even that?
Other than they think it's a youth market thing. Oh, it's really cool. We got a top recording artist in the ring again. You know what? Who's going to be it's SummerSlam? Jay Leno and the basketball player. Dennis Rodman, right? I mean, God.
By the way, sidebar: did I not just turn on AEW and see Master freaking P come out in New Orleans?
Yep.
I mean, do they must? I mean, it just writes itself at this point. And guys out there in the wrestling world, I don't watch any of this stuff. I just happen to catch that. Are you ribbing me? 25 years later, they bring Master P out, one of the biggest debacles of the WCW?
No, it wasn't a debacle. I happen to have been No Limit Soldier number 17. I was standing in the back. So as far as I'm concerned, it was a smash hit and one of wrestling's greatest moments.
Jeez Louise, man, I tell you. I mean, wrestling is just eating its own self alive. I don't even know.
And you're right. You're right. And I wouldn't have said that a year ago, and now I'm saying it too.
Yeah,
because it's like I'm literally, as someone who has loved this from the time I was 12 years old and can't look away from it, keep talking about it, wrote for it, got into the fringes of the business, and now to see what it's become, it's sobering.
And you know what? I've been saying that for a long time, but I must say, in my heart of hearts, in my own way of not paying attention to it and yet still paying attention to it, this had to have been the worst WrestleMania deal I've ever seen.
I think it was the worst.
Well, so Steve, continue with that. Let's put your cap on it, and I have one more thing to say about it.
Well, I know I was just like you guys. I mean, I had it on. The matches that I seemed to watch were like the like in between matches. None of the major ones, but the ones I saw. I mean, the way they booked the show, whoever booked the show, whether it was Triple H or somebody else, they just said to themselves, every match we're gonna let somebody wins who the fans aren't expecting to win. And they did that in every match. So whoever put that together thought that would be the winning formula to knock this out of the park. But I'd rather see the people that should win rather than just have, oh my God, I would never imagine that this Japanese girl would have beat Rhea Ripley and this other megastar in the same night. I thought the booking was terrible.
Let me finish with this. The next morning I'm on Facebook, right? And I'm seeing fans post their fan pictures of where they sat in that football stadium.
I know.
Right.
And somebody goes, I paid $500 for this view. You could not. They were so far up and so far back, they couldn't see anything. So people were paying $400 for cheap seats way up top. And they ended up looking at screens the whole time. There's a picture of another guy who was forced to look at his telephone because he could see nothing else. He was watching the thing on his, on his Netflix or what's it? Peacock, right? He happened to have the stream of Peacock on his phone. He was forced to do that because he couldn't see anything else. We've reached the point where a family of four, let's say they wanted fifth row seats or the second deck seats. They literally have to mortgage their future to go to wrestling. It's gone too far.
Yeah.
It's gone too effing far. I'm sorry. It's insane now. The cheapest seat. Somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true, that the cheapest seat was $300. Is that true?
I heard it was incredibly expensive. And I mean,
yeah.
They still haven't hit the amount that they would need to give me to attend, but But that's always been like when I see these concerts like in Rock in Rio or these gigantic, and I even saw the Stones in stadiums and stuff. And I'm like, this is completely ridiculous. Unless you're going to do something like Pink Floyd and have a giant pig and a stage show that warrants it, why would you go to anything where you're so freaking far away, much less wrestling, which if you're not in the third row, you're already losing out, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm spoiled. I'll admit it. I've been ringside so much in my life that it's like now the idea of sitting in, the third deck just doesn't. I can't cotton to it anymore.
Say it's a giant concert. Say it's Glastonbury. You're the 4 billionth person back when Coldplay comes out. Like, what is happening? Like, why would anyone go to a giant stadium like that to begin with?
We are in the midst of the Taylor Swiftization of entertainment right now. It doesn't matter what it is.
Going on forever. They always shoved as many people into the stadiums.
Well, yeah, but no, I don't mean even that. It's not even the stadiums. It's the prices. They're insane.
Oh yeah,
it's insane. It's for anything. Well, I wanted to go to a Bonnie Raitt concert at Westbury Music Fair, guys, about last year. And any seat was like $285. I'm like $285. I used to go see her for $75.
Right.
What happened?
No,
The answer is greed.
Same thing happened to me with the Cult. I used to go to the Cult, standing room only, play a small club. What did it cost? $20-$30.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 1980s. I'm talking about 10 years ago. Now to see the Cult, they play some fancy building. Seating only, no standing, $300.
Yeah,
I don't know. And where are people getting all this money from? By the way, for all these entertainment things, wrestling fans famously don't even have money. I mean, what do they pack 4 million of them in? And not to how many of these people travel from around the world?
Yeah, it's amazing. Steve, are you active going out to see things anymore?
I mean, I'm like you. And my wife, thankfully, is the keeper of our financial funds. Thankfully, she does that I could do some damage. So when she knew I wanted to see Steely Dan, she found the money to buy the $300 tickets or whatever. But I mean, that's a lot of money for those tickets. And but yeah, I all of this is out of my league. I mean, I would never go to a WrestleMania, but one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you two gentlemen together is that 20 years ago here in Tampa, where I live, we had this thing called Wrestle Reunion, put together by this guy Sal Carenti, and maybe you know him a little bit better than I do, Howard. But he had this.
I call Wrestle Reunion Sal Carenti's gift to the wrestling world out of the goodness of his heart.
But he had. But for those that don't know about it, there had been wrestling conventions before. We had WFIA conventions, and I know Howard's been involved with that too. But in 2005, it was announced in 2004 there was going to be this huge wrestling convention in Tampa, and they started to announce all the names who were going to be there. And it was on a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's Saturday night, I think. They actually had a live wrestling card too. But I mean, the people that were in attendance that day, besides fans like me and Howard, were the actual wrestlers. We had Bruno Sammartino, we had Jack Briscoe, Harley Race, Lex Luger, Nick Bockwinkel. I mean, basically like 60 to 70 to 80 of the biggest names in the history of the wrestling business. And at the time, I thought we were paying a lot of money to go into this, Howard. I mean, I think the entry fee was like $85 to $100 maybe. And then I got my picture with Bruno. That was like another 85 or something like that. But it just, at least you were seeing legends. At least you were seeing people that you'd never be able to see them again. I mean, of course, most of them are dead now. That makes it hard to see them now. But at least you got your money's worth to see these people and talk to them and engage with them. Now you go to these conventions before WrestleMania or any of these other huge fan conventions, and you're paying this top dollar price. You're paying $200 to get an autograph of Ric Flair or whoever, and you're getting screwed. At least at this show with Sal Carenti, I felt I was paying a lot of money, but at least I got some memories and got to meet some of these real, true wrestling legends.
When this topic came up, I thought that there's two types of fan conventions, and one of them is for money, and the other one is for people in the business. The ones that are for people in the business are the Gulf Coast one in Alabama, I believe, that I haven't been to. Scott Teal always goes there, all those Southern guys. And more famously, the CAC, something like that. The CAC recently has morphed into the second category, which is the shows that are for profit, for money, so the guys can set up a table and make money. Something like the CAC made this transition in the last maybe 10, 15 years, because when I used to go there, let's say 1996, just for example, is one of the older ones that I've been to, and you would be hobnobbing with, I had
Freddie
Jim
Lassie.
White, Jerry Lawler's old tag partner at my table, and Jack and Jerry Briscoe were walking around, and Lou Thez was walking around, and Al Costello, and Bockwinkel, and The Rock happened to be at that one in 96 in Tampa, and all these guys. And that's an example of free-range legends, doesn't cost you a cent. The supposition is that you're in the business. Hey, I'm cool, you're cool, let's get a picture. No, nothing. And then you have the two types of money-orientated fan cons. One that's fan-friendly. An example of that would be Barry Rose's thing that he does in Lutz, where it's not like a line and a fortune and it's like a whole, you're treated like cattle, and you don't even have a minute to say anything meaningful to the person that you just sold your kidney to meet. And I don't think it should be like that, because, I mean, if you're going to wait 2 hours, that's why, folks, pro tip, get into the business like I did. You meet everybody and it doesn't cost you anything. And that's the whole reason I got into it. There's the secret. Bob got into it for a living. He's a professional journalist. I was a kid who wanted to get on the other side of that dressing room door, and I did. And here's the thing. If it's worth it to you, it's worth it to you. When I was a kid, I would have murdered at least one side of my own family to meet superstar Billy Graham or Dusty Rhodes. Through the grace of God, I did. So it's like, if I was a needy kid, and I would say to my dad in 1976, "Oh, Dad, Dusty Rhodes is going to be there. It's $100. I wasn't that kind of kid. I would never do that. But that's the same type of situation. Like in 1976, I would have killed somebody to meet Dusty Rhodes. And that would have been worth it. Like you didn't even think it was humanly possible. Now, if you are of a certain age where you feel that way about The Miz or Dom Mysterio or Rhea, young people who are 22, who are not legends, if you're the right age to be impressed by them and it's worth it to you, then fine. But more power to you, whoever is making the money, because it seems like such an imbalance. The money you have to pony up for people who really are nothing.
Well, I want to tell you guys a funny story here. My hero in wrestling was always Bruno Sammartino. And at this Wrestle Reunion thing, I had a chance to meet him finally. So I get in line. I'm the third in line out of, probably 300 people are going to get his autograph. He had the biggest line of all the people that were there. So I'm in line, waiting to talk to him and trying to put into my head, like, well, what should I even ask him or talk to him about? But the funny thing was, there's like two guys ahead of me, and one guy came like right straight out of The Sopranos, and he's like, "Hey, Bruno, I wanna get you and Dominic and your wives and take you on a cruise for free." And I'm thinking to myself, to be Bruno Sammartino, your whole life must have been like this. Guys coming up to you offering you free cruises and hey, I want to take care of you, Bruno, and because he was like a hero to so many of us. But he was so gracious when I talked to him, and I can barely remember what I even said, but he was so genuine and so nice. He was asking me, well, where are you from? And I told him Binghamton, New York, and he remembered being there. In fact, that's where he called Randy Savage a piece of slime that time. And,
you slime.
You slime.
Plastic, yeah.
But he was such a nice guy. And then, I watched the other people come through the line. There were little girls from Japan were there to get his autograph. And it was just funny to be there that day and to see the other people interact. I mean, Barry Rose was on one of the shows with McAdam and me, and he said that Dusty, and I had seen this myself that day, Dusty was such a prick to his fans. He was so freaking arrogant. he had this interview thing with Bill Apter where he's talking to all the fans that are there. And he was so friggin' arrogant. I know when he got close to the end and his health went bad, he was really nice to everybody and he changed his ways, but he was a real asshole that day.
You know, he was famous for that. I've seen both sides of Dusty, and I've been privy to both sides of Dusty because I was good friends with Howard Brody, who was his biographer. Howard Brody told me a lot of good stories, of which I'm saving in case I do a book, and he didn't get to include them in his. But Dusty has a human side. Dusty has a human side, and I've psychologically evaluated him. And I feel like he is going to turn his back on the fans before you realize that he's not really anything special. I think he has like fat man complex. Right. Because I said to Terry Funk and his wife Vicky, I go, how come Flair and Dusty are such and Terry is better than both of them and he's the coolest guy in the world? And she goes, because Terry is Terry. Terry is just Terry. Those guys are not who they are. Dusty is afraid you're going to find him out and he has fat man syndrome. And I've seen him be nice, and I've seen the real him, and I've seen his sense of humor, and I've seen him be a prick. So I'll give you an example. In 2009, Charlotte, I was talking to, a little name dropping here. You might have heard of these guys, Sir Oliver Humperdinck and Dirty Dick Slater.
Right, of course, legends.
And Humperdinck knew me, and he assumed that I knew everybody more than I did. I never really met Dusty per se up to that point, and this is 2009. I didn't want to ruin it. I did a Costanza. Because when Dusty came over, I'm like, I'm going to get out of here. You know, these guys know each other for 50 years. I'm like, you know, I'm just going to expose myself. Like, you know, Dusty's going to find out I ran opposition in 84. I'm just going to say hi and leave. So I'm talking to Dickie Slater, all-time favorite of mine, and Humperdinck, who I really was friends with. And Dusty comes over, but on the way over to us, nobody was there. Nobody around was there. Nice guy, middle-aged guy, couldn't have been nicer. Goes over to the number one babyface of all time in the South, in North Carolina, and says, Dusty, I've been your fan my whole life. I've been a fan of yours my whole life. Could I just get your autograph? And Dusty goes, yeah, in about 15 minutes for $25. using his real voice, his scary real life Dusty Rhodes voice, not the jive, you know? And I'm like, I was so taken aback. So I already knew I was not going to stick around and oversee my welcome, like get out on a high spot.
Right.
So I already said my goodbyes to Hump and Slater. And then Humperdinck goes to Dusty, Dusty, you know Howard, right? And I'm thinking in my head, of course he doesn't. And I go, Dusty, what a baby face. Because I saw what he did to the guy. He goes, and he got a look on his face. He was completely not expecting that. And he goes, I am a baby face. Like laughing to himself, but embarrassed. I embarrassed Dusty Rhodes. That's and then hilarious. I'm like, all right, see you guys. Because I knew that the next thing I did was going to just bury myself. But I got out on a high note like Costanza.
But at that Wrestle Reunion show, if there was an MVP, Terry Funk would probably be it, because everybody and his brother and women and men and children, everybody was coming to Terry to get a picture. And this is just walking around the place. He accommodated everybody with a huge smile on his face. It was the nicest guy in the world, didn't turn anybody down. And you could just tell the love he had for wrestling, the love he had for his fans. And there's nobody like Terry Funk.
It didn't matter who you are or when you bugged him. He didn't even get a micro expression of annoyance. And he was nice as can be. And I always say that he was the most down-to-earth of all the major name wrestlers. And arguably the biggest major name, my GOAT anyway. I don't know about biggest name, but he's my GOAT. And he's the coolest guy to the fans of that stature I've ever seen.
But Terry was complicated, though, because if the bell was on, if the light was on, and it was go time, he was that Terry Funk.
He's ready to snap.
And that Terry Funk lasted for the minute he walked through the curtain to the minute he went back into the locker room, who is a different person than the Terry Funk that you meet.
Right.
Because I've seen Terry Funk tear into people backstage because he was still in character. He still wound up after a big match.
Right.
She tried to bite me, Gary. In New Haven, Connecticut, he's yelling at a woman who was just standing there. And Gary Hart goes, why you yelling at that lady? She tried to bite me, Gary. And the woman's going, I'm just standing here. And you go, get her away from me, Gary. I mean, it was like, you see what I'm saying? That was Terry when the red light was on, when it was time to be wrestling Terry Funk. You know what I'm saying? And I respect that. That's like the Sheik. That's like Terry Funk. That's like the old guys.
Legitimate.
You saw them in an arena. They were who they were in front of those cameras every week.
No. Do I understand? I was one of those guys. 1989, Night Center. Terry Funk is working Dusty Rhodes in the main event of a bunkhouse. Spent the majority of the night backstage, shooting pictures of Terry, joking around. Luna was there. Luna's like, where's the party tonight? We're all happy, joking around. He's like in a bunkhouse outfit. Took great photos. And they have their match, Dusty and Terry. Classic. Poor attendance. It was the death knell of the PWF, Professional Wrestling from Florida, in 1989. It was their last big attempt to have a show. Horrendous crowd at the Night Center, but the match was no less classic. It might have well has been 1974 at the Bayfront. Terry Funk put on a clinic like he always does. And in the wrestling business, they always say there's two people you need to run from, Terry Funk and Abdullah. And I figured I was just with him 20 minutes ago. I was with him all night. He came at me, and he would have liked to kill me if he could have gotten his hands on me in between the ring and the dressing room when the match was over. And he was a bloody mess, and he was in a frenzy. And I saw him joking around, sweet as pie. Then I saw him get psyched up. And then from there, he became the maniac that you see on TV, beating up Bruce Walkup and stuff like that. I mean, he was in full Bruce Walkup mode. If you guys have ever seen that cage match, look it up. Terry Funk against Bruce Walkup. He was psyched like that. And then they cut to Gordon Solie and he goes, well, that man is just clearly unhinged. It was like so great because all Solie had to do was say like, look, I don't know what I could say, because Terry was insane and he was in that mode.
It was a wonder to behold. It really was. I loved him. I loved Terry. Terry once gave me the evil eye from ringside at an East Coast card because I got knocked over by referees, and he looked at me like he's looking at me. He's giving me the dagger eyes from across the ring, and I'm like, oh God, he thinks I wanted to be part of the show. I didn't. I really got knocked over. So I did what I think was logical. I grabbed my back like I was in dire pain and walked the hell out of there. I was at ringside, and I got out. I hauled ass. After the show was over, we're at the Philadelphia bar, wherever the heck this thing was. It was one of those tri-state shows. And he's sitting at a table, and I see him waving me over. I went, oh gosh, he's going to read me the riot act, right? He's going to lay into me. I come over and go, hi, Terry, good to see you again. He goes, will you buy me a beer? I said, yeah, you bet your ass I'll buy you a beer. I thought he was there to like lay into me, and he invited me back. We talked for about an hour and a half, and he was the coolest guy you'd ever meet, just like you said. So, like I say, it was those complications in his personality that made him the legend that he was. He meant it. He walked it. He talked it. He was it.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? He wasn't fooling around.
You know what's so
wrestling was real what Terry Funk was concerned.
When he used to come out and go down the aisle and personally challenge anybody that so much as said boo to him down the aisle, how it never led to blows is just a testament to how scary he was. Because, that was the greatest. When he would come down the aisle, it never failed. He'd get right in the biggest, scariest looking fans, he'd get right in their face. And it was just the best. He was so Terry Funk.
When I go to promote this show on social media when this show comes out, I happen to have a photo of him threatening me. Terry Funk with his finger in my face, threatening me from Tri-State on that same night of that card I talked to you about. I can think of no better way to promote the show.
That's so great.
It's a great photo too. Wait till you see it. It's gonna be But anyway, as far as my own deal with conventions, I went to one of the earliest ones in the East Coast. It was one of the Arizzi conventions. I had a nice enough time, but to me, it was like going to work because I was still with PWI at that point, and it was like I enjoyed it, but I saw a bunch of people I already knew, and I frankly I kind of went because I don't remember if I was covering it for the magazine or some shit. I just don't remember. But in more recent years, 2 years ago, I went to one of Rob Feinstein's conventions in Philadelphia. Right? I said, I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to buy a table. I'm going to get a table. Because, the show was only a few months old at that point. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I happen to have this giant poster about the show, a big professionally printed poster, because in the early days of the podcast, Steve, you might remember this, I did a barter deal with a bowling alley locally.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They put a poster for my show, giant. I mean, this thing is giant. It's like 20 by 30 or something like that. So it's like they put the poster up in the thing, and I gave them a 1-minute ad on every show. And then he threw me like $500 a month for doing it. So I said, why would I not do that starting a podcast? You know, one of those deals. So anyway, I have this big poster. So what am I going to do? Let's bring it to Philadelphia, right? So I put it on the table, right? And all I wanted to do was shake hands and say, hey, I got a podcast. You remember me? I got a podcast, right? And that was really a fun thing. A lot of old timers were there. I got to meet Greg Gagne for the first time.
Yeah.
But the best part was I got to run into people who were there who I didn't know were going to be, like Bill Apter and Todd Gordon, and, you know, people that I actually knew in the business that I hadn't seen physically in a long time.
Yeah.
So that was great. I enjoyed that. But I have to admit, as far as conventions go, I can take them or leave them, really, because it's just, I don't know. I don't have a caste system when it comes to wrestlers. I like them. I have nothing against them, but I can't imagine getting in line and giving somebody $100 to take a picture with, you know, Fatty McGee from some indie organization in 1988. It doesn't make any sense to me personally, because I was in the business. I never had to pay for anything.
Right,
I'm spoiled.
exactly.
But
I'm spoiled.
What was cool about this Wrestle Reunion thing is that they had so many notable names, like Dustin Rhodes, Dusty's son, was there. I was talking to him. I mean, his father was a real ass, but Dustin was really, really nice. And he had just been on Howard Stern as Goldust, and he did some funny shtick with Howard. I said, when are you going to be back on the Stern show? And he really liked the fact that I wasn't talking wrestling with him. He was hoping to come back on the Howard Stern show. And Mike Graham was there. He was really, really nice. Around the time of this show, I got to meet Mike Graham, who was a really, really nice guy. And at the time of this event, on Saturday nights here in Tampa, they were rerunning old tapes of the championship wrestling from Florida. And they had him and Randy Savage, who also lived here at the time, would do these wraparounds. They would do an opening to the show and a closing to the show. So when I went up to Mike Graham, I said, where's your tag team partner, referring to Randy Savage? And he said, oh, he's probably fishing or something like that. And at that moment, I guess I was, Hogan, Flair, and Savage were probably the only major names in wrestling not at this event. But he was really, really nice, Mike Graham. And we just talked about the business, and just couldn't have been any nicer. I know a lot of the people that are posting on the internet see him on the WWF roundtable shows or shoot interviews, and they think he's just, has a Napoleon complex or something, but he was a really pleasant guy to talk with.
Yeah, I feel so badly that he doesn't represent himself well on those things, especially all those shoot interviews where this guy didn't draw a dime or whatever. Right. Ever since the time I was a kid, and including Wrestle Reunion, he has always been extremely nice to me.
He was very nice.
Just a very nice, down-to-earth guy. And then I had to stop talking to him at Wrestle Reunion because I was talking to him. It was 10:30 in the morning, and one or both of us was enjoying a libation or two at that point, at that tender hour of the day. I'm like, wow, that's odd. But here comes Kevin Sullivan, another one of my sworn maybe enemies, maybe I don't know enemies. And Kevin Sullivan's favorite line is, oh, I know who you are. You're the guy that tried to take the territory from Eddie Graham, which was never true. Never in our pea brains of our promotion was anyone going to say we're trying to. No, we ran a little show in Miami, a little show in Nassau. That had nothing to do, but, in the wrestling world, we're running opposition to Eddie Graham. So here I am talking to Mike Graham. Here comes Kevin Sullivan, so I'm fixing to make another one of my hasty retreats. And so Kevin Sullivan comes up and Mike Graham goes, hey, Shorty. And that was my out. And I go, okay, see you guys. Before Kevin Sullivan recognized me again. Oh, my God. So, yeah. But Mike Graham's always been a really nice guy, and he comes off terribly in these interviews and stuff. But he wasn't really like that. He was a nice guy. Yeah, nice to me as a kid, too. Just very down to earth when a lot of the baby faces really didn't have to be.
Oh, absolutely. And I know one thing we talked about a little bit before the show started It's about the hygiene of the wrestling fans today.
Well, as I mentioned, Steve, I know a lot of wrestlers.
And every day.
I know a lot of wrestlers from today, and I know a lot of people who work behind the scenes at these conventions, right? I'm not going to mention any names because they said things to me in confidence, but I want to say this to you fans listening out there. I would imagine that a lot of the people that would like this show would also go to wrestling conventions. I am begging you, take a shower before you go to a wrestling convention. I am serious, particularly amongst the female wrestlers. I am not speaking out of turn. Don't wear the same thing you wore to go pumpkin picking and then show up at a wrestling convention. Okay, please? Don't go apple picking and then show up. Honestly, I was at this thing in Philadelphia, and one of the AEW female stars was there, and lovely short lady. I don't remember which one it was, and I don't want to embarrass her, but there was a long line of, I don't want to insult anybody, but this is a long line of these oversized, hulking,
400-pound ball guys, as you're trying to say.
You don't know what to say. Okay, you say it. Fine. And I was like, and she was like getting, wrapping her arms around all of these guys. And I'm like, boy, I wouldn't even do that. I don't care. If you gave me $75 a person, I'm not doing that. It's like, but I've heard talk, and I've talked to a lot of people, that the one thing that some of the wrestlers don't like about the conventions is they get close to some of these folks and they're odious. And I'm just begging, you know what? My fans are too classy to not show up with, improper physical hygiene. And I think, right, but as for you younger guys out there, please, it's like you're going to church or you're going to Target or something. Put your best foot forward, won't you, when you go to the wrestling conventions? I rest my case.
It's sad that they don't attempt to differentiate themselves by maybe don't wear the Austin 316 t-shirt from 74 years ago. Maybe, if you differentiate yourself and you clean yourself up a little, some of these people might have a little respect for you. 90% of it is like Chris Farley saying to Paul McCartney, hey, remember when you won that Intercontinental title? Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, what are you going to do? All you can do is be responsible for yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm sure it happens in every other sport.
It does. I've been to baseball things too. Steve, you're a baseball fan. You've gone to places. I remember once at the Javits Center, people were lining up. They had this big baseball convention there, and it was the same thing.
Yeah, because
it's the middle of August. It's hot out.
It's not just wrestling.
People show up in cargo shorts and flip flops, to go into the Javits Center and get, I don't know, Ed Kranepool's autograph or something like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, what can you do?
But if you're 400 pounds and you're bald and a wrestling fan, you can go to Nordstrom and you can go to the cologne counter, and if you ask nicely, they give you free samples.
something.
Oh, no, I don't agree. I don't agree with you, Steve. You ever meet somebody who uses too much cologne? As George Carlin would say, they can knock a buzzard off a shit wagon, man. I'm telling you right now. Too much cologne is as bad as BO, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, as Jiminy Quick said to his wife Dixie when she was talking about her vagina, remember when we discussed subtlety, dear?
So where are we leaving it with conventions, guys? Yay, nay, in between? How do you feel about them right now? I mean, you have any plans to go to any? What's happening with those?
That's a rich one. You want to?
No, he's not. One, Howard is not going to any conventions, I don't think.
Well, the ones that Barry Rose has put on, they're more like boutique conventions.
Right.
They're smaller and more intimate, more sharing, and they have the potential to be more fun, I think.
I would like to go to ones that have panels. Yeah. Sometimes they have panels, and I would find that more informative. Like, I know Bill Apter has run panels for years at these things, and I think that would be more interesting than standing in line for autograph. I'd like to hear what they have to say, from somebody else who was in the business and just talk about old times. That to me I would cotton to that. I think that would be kind of cool.
Well, I think if Barry Rose put a panel together of the stars of the Arcadian Vanguard, and they got Howard Baum, and they got and some other people, yeah, I think the people would come out of the woodwork for that.
Yeah, and be polite too. Be polite, people out there, no matter what you do. In fact, be polite everywhere you go. It's not a skill. It's just, don't be, loud. I wasn't lied twice. I've seen it all happen at these wrestling conventions, right?
These days, I mean, we're in the last throes of our civilization. Forget wrestling. I mean,
I think COVID made everybody crazy. I really do. I think that 2 years cooped up at home turned everybody into I don't know.
I don't know, but I tell you something.
Fly off the handle at the smallest little thing all the time.
Do you know what kind of interaction I find encapsulates life in these United States today? This kind of a thing. It's where somebody will run you off the road when you're minding your own business, and you go, "Hey, friend, what's your problem?" And they get mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
That is life in these great states today.
Well,
nobody takes any accountability for anything. They could do whatever they want to you. And if you say, "Hey, chum, I don't really appreciate that," they'll come at you.
I just drove my wife in Coral Gables, and she was really worried because the drivers there are kind of fast. We're close to Miami, and I felt it was perfect. People were nice, people were hospitable. But here, where I live in Tampa, you get cut off everywhere if you try to merge lanes. You're taking your life in your own hands. We have the highest insurance, auto insurance in the nation here in Hillsborough County, because everybody drives like an idiot and everybody's from somewhere else and they don't know, the rules of the road. There's no courtesy in driving anymore.
Why is it that when someone cuts you off or does something dangerous around you, that can extend my middle finger, so they cut you off to get ahead of you, but when they see you do it, they suddenly have time to slow down, back up, start screaming at you and want to fight you. So are you in a hurry or do you have a lot of leisure time? I've never been able to equate that with logic.
Well, you know what happens? The only way to make somebody speed up around here is to act like you want to get in front of them. Oh, all of a sudden they're paying attention. And I'll tell you, since we're a bunch of old men yelling at clouds, the entire downfall of driving is people on their phones as a primary activity and not driving as a primary activity. Because I can't tell you how many times a day you go around somebody going 15 miles an hour, creating a hazard. They are happily enjoying their phone with the light reflecting on their face. And I tell you, it sets me into a murderous rage every time. I'm surprised there's not more accidents. I'm surprised there's not more acts of vigilantism on the road. If it was up to me, there certainly would be. I would gussy my car up like Kurt Russell in Death Proof. And I would run all these MFers right off the road when I see that phone come out.
As my staff announcer, Bob, 20 minutes from now would say, "You young punks! Obey all traffic laws."
And it's so weird.
Nobody does. Nobody cares.
That word weird. You know how the young kids like to use the word weird? Well, I was going to a place by my house, and it's like I call it the Slauson cutoff, because every time I go there, I get my Slauson cut off. No, I get cut off every time. I'm like extra cautious. I'm like, here it comes. Probably won't happen today. Bloop, there I go. I got cut off. Then I'm going to make my next right. Bloop, there I go. Cut off by the same person twice. So I follow them, as I'm wont to do. And I don't know who's in the car, and I back into them. I back into the spot next to them. So I'm facing them. So I'm close to them, like a foot away. Like I reverse into the spot. And she goes, and there's this hot young Latin girl. She goes, "Are you following me?" I go, "Yeah. You cut me off not once, but twice. I thought you were going to be an old lady, but you're just a stupid young girl." She goes, "Why are you saying these words to me? I haven't said anything to you." I go, "Yeah, because you're the one who cut me off. I just want my apology. I want acknowledgement. You're weird. Get away from me." And I go, and I became Larry David. I go, "Oh, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. Oh, the man said words to me." I'm like, take some responsibility, lady. It's called a society.
Well, getting back to wrestling, just for one final minute, I wanted to say,
I'm on a rant now.
I wanted to say, we've covered
5 minutes worth of driving material after this, man. This is just
We've covered WrestleMania. We've covered wrestling conventions. The one thing that we didn't talk about that gave me so much joy as a fan was getting the Observer in the mail every Saturday, or in some weeks on the Monday. Those were the happiest days of my life.
Well, I agree with that. Well, happiest days of my life when it comes to wrestling.
One or two better days the happiest days when the Observer came, as good as it was.
Dave Meltzer, he made my life worth living. I mean, years later when I was a single guy in an apartment here in Tampa, the best day of the month was the day that Playboy showed up in my mail. But
emphasis
the
on
Observer,
the single between the Playboy and the Observer.
The
My
Observer
favorite
was
was the Here and There, though, because that was always that was where all the flotsam and jetsam would come from that week's news. Like, Kawada broke his toe and Penelope Paradise got new underwear. Like, it would be all these random things at one time,
Yeah. I'm so much
it.
older than you guys. My favorite wrestling memories are still getting together with my good friends and getting my friend Rick Stickles. What a great name, right? Being Rick and Larry Van Dyke were getting his beat up beige Volkswagen Bug and go to Albany to watch Rocky Tamayo versus Steve King and the rest of the WWE or WWF prelim guys before the main event of like Baron Von Raschke versus TJ Strongbow. Those are memories that I can't. And I found out that they still run wrestling on occasion in that same building. Before I die, I want to go back to Albany and sit in that building one more time to watch wrestling. I would love to do that.
I remember when I used to trade photos and people in the WWF territory would send me photos, and it would always be like these ancient looking boxing rings with the big, nasty looking ropes. And it would always be like Rocky Tamayo and people like that. Do you guys ever remember a guy named Joe Mascaro?
Yes.
Yeah.
Philly guy?
Yeah, he used to be prelim guy, right?
Yeah. The funniest thing happened. When we were down here, it's a little snapshot of the 1983 Tampa, South Florida wrestling scene. And the movers and shakers were Malenko in South Florida, Malenko in Tampa, Rusty Brooks down in South Florida and stuff. And when we were doing our little promotion, this guy, Joe Mascaro, was around, and he was acting like he was main eventing against Backlund, and he just decided to come down to Florida for a vacation. And this was like 83. And I don't know what kind of a turnip truck they thought we came off of, but he's like, oh yeah, it was a major store up there, and we're Backlund at the Philly and the what. And he didn't know that I might have been 12 years old, but I knew my wrestling, and I knew he wasn't nothing. But I was just curious if you guys had any kind of thoughts, interaction, anything with him.
Yeah, he was just a TV announcement guy.
Yeah, I had a similar run-in long before I worked at wrestling magazines. It was at Hudson High School and had a long conversation with Pinky Larson, the most obscure wrestler that WWF ever had, who was the guy to set up rings they would throw him into a match when somebody didn't show up on occasion at high schools and, real D cities, right?
He was like 5'6".
And I walk up, he came up to my belt buckle, right? And I walk up to him and Hudson High School go, you're Pinky Larson. I saw you beat Frankie Williams and blah, blah. I read that you beat Frankie Williams. He goes, yeah, I mighted that bum. And then he starts to tell me the story of his storied career, how he had to wrestle. I had to wrestle under a hood, wearing a mask everywhere you go. It changes a man. He started to go into the entire, but you know what? I admired him for that.
He looked like superstar Billy Graham from behind. He had long flowing blonde hair, but he was 5'6" in a chair.
I know his name. Yeah. I don't know who he is, but I know the name because it's an all-time great name.
Or he was known on TV. I remember Vince announcing him as Bimbo Larson. I don't know why.
That I never heard.
But I will say that it's the first wrestler I ever talked to, and he put on airs, and I've appreciated him for that all these years later, for 1974 or 5, whatever this was, because he talked to me in character.
Right.
I still dig that, man. He wasn't dropping. He's a guy who sat up rings and went into character when a fan recognized him. God bless you, man. That's wrestling.
But you know what that reminds me of? How every town has a guy who's allegedly a wrestler. Like Joe Mascaro was trying to put himself off as, and a couple of guys that I can name off the top of my head. But you see their name in every pizza place and every haircut place, and they're not wrestling fans per se, so they think, well, this guy's weird looking. Maybe he's a wrestler that I don't know about since I don't watch it. So then he'll put his 8x10 up there that he got when he first started training, and he's like, to Jim, the best haircutter, champion, blah, blah. Champion of nothing, and nobody knows these guys were never in the wrestling business, but they're like, hey, check out my friend Steve for the best haircut. try and refer people when nobody takes their references because they're not anything.
I have a similar thing. I had a friend named Frankie Paris who was a great singer, and I signed him to my record label, and he had a fantastic voice. He worked in New York City for years, decades, as an R&B singer. Great voice. And I go to his house all the time in Brooklyn, and he used to have, I'm not going to say who it was it was a framed photo of a lady, an Italian lady, and it said, blah, 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 star of Goodfellas. Now, I'm the biggest fan of Goodfellas in the world. This woman muttered in Goodfellas. She was in Goodfellas. I recognized her from the photo, but she was not the star of Goodfellas. She kind of went in the background in the bar scene.
Right.
And I'm like, star of Goodfellas? You know what? I wasn't in Goodfellas. I'm not putting her down. That was one of the classic films of all time. But you know, when you're striving to do something, you only touch the fringes of the hem of what you're trying to do. At least you got that far. You know, some people never get that far. So, Mr. Mascara,
if that is your real name,
I could hardly get mad at, you know, at least he didn't call himself Mill Mascara, right? I mean, you know, could have been worse.
But you know, the thing is, there's a lot of guys that over exaggerate what they do, and I figure like if you've done that much, then just be proud of that. Like, why would you? I don't want false valor. I list the magazines that my photos appeared in. I would like to list some more, but I don't. And nobody would know the difference, but I would know the difference. And I know when I look at my list of stuff, I 1000% did that. And I don't need to put a little something in there that might make it look a little bit better. Because what you did is good enough. And if you were a jobber, okay, have the manhood to say, I was a jobber, and this is the reason. Not what every wrestler says, which is the promoter didn't like me, and he pushed his own son, and he was jealous of me. And especially later in life, you got to come to terms. You got to be like, it's finite. During my career, I did this. Because if you don't say it, somebody else is going to say it. You're not going to talk yourself into being bigger than you are unless the people don't know what you're talking about. And in that case, it doesn't matter anyway. Because then you're an indie manager putting your name up in a pizza restaurant.
Well, as my grandmother used to say, it takes all kinds. Right? It takes all kinds.
We've covered every base. I
can't believe we've made it this far. Yeah. I want to tell the people I was very ill before this episode. And funnily enough, I was going to say this episode, if it's going to feature me, it was going to be like one of those Eric Roberts before he made it big VHS boxes, like House on the End of Time with Eric Roberts, but it was his first role and he has like one scene in it. Because I thought I was going to be so sick I couldn't even do this, but you guys have invigorated me. And as always,
I want to thank you for bullying your way through.
As always, I do it for you, the wrestling fans, and the children.
This will bring Bob's highest ratings yet. Unquestionably, having Howard Baum on the show will produce the highest ratings we've seen.
I hope so. My last YouTube one was like a third of my first one. I think the people are really growing tired of me in rapid fashion.
I have to corral you to Steve. Tell the good people. I'm losing my voice. Steve, tell the good people out there where they can find you, won't you?
I'm on the show with John McAdam. Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, which comes out every Friday.
Stick to Wrestling.
Featuring Brian Solomon. But no, it's Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. It comes out every Friday, and it's a good show. I mean, we talk about wrestling from days gone by, and I'm very glad to be a part of it.
There you go, Mr. Baum. Any place you would like for people to say hi to you in social media or whatnot?
Just get on the Facebook, check out hardwayart.com, and there should be some exciting developments happening there before long, if the Lord continues to smile on me. And that's it. Come feel free to friend me on Facebook, Howard Baum, Hardway Art. I'm an affable fellow. Good to know. And that's about all I could think of.
There you go. And as for me, I'm making personal appearances each Saturday and Sunday these days at Luigi's Pizzeria in New Hyde Park. I will be there enjoying their unbelievable buffalo chicken slice which I always have with a plain slice to clean the palate afterwards. So come and visit me at Luigi's Pizzeria. There's my $50. Okay, guys, it's a pleasure. I'm really glad to have you both here again. More fun than a person has a right to have doing a podcast. And I admire you both, and I'm really appreciative. And this, again, another Steve Gennarelli concept. Thank you, Steve.
It's great to be here. It's great to get a heavy hitter like Howard Baum.
I know.
It's great to have him here.
Great to have both of you here. Folks, it's Howard Baum and Steve Gennarelli. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, that puts a nice lid on that one, doesn't it? Thank you again, Steve Gennarelli and Howard Baum. Always fun talking to you guys, and I hope the listeners enjoyed as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you guys. And thanks again, Joe Puccio. Always a giant plus for this particular podcast. It's been fun. It's been busy. Everything's going well. Just wanted to check in with everybody here and let you know that the Outdated Wrestling Hour is part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Most of our recent shows are there. WrestleCopia.com. You can find them right there. OutdatedWrestlingHour.buzzsprout.com. Check it out. All of our podcasts from day one are on that site. OutdatedWrestlingHour.buzzsprout.com. Also, if you tool around there and look at the About tag on there, play with the website a little bit. I never tell people to do this because, websites are boring. Everybody prefers social media at this point, but the website is pretty cool. If you go to the About, it will tell you about half of the number of podcast apps you can find the show at. If you want to move it to your favorite, chances are it's there and it's listed. And we're also on many apps that aren't even listed there. In any event, you find out all about the show. You can also find out about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, where for a nominal fee, and I mean like $3 a month, you can join our little team here, which helps perpetuate the monthly Outdated Entertainment Hour, OutdatedWrestlingHour.buzzsprout.com. Real easy to do. You can join anytime you like. You can quit anytime you like. It's all there for you if you'd like to be part of the scene here. Write to us at OutdatedWrestling@gmail.com. Just that simple, OutdatedWrestling@gmail. Find me on Facebook under the name of Bob Smith. I'm the only Bob Smith singing with a BB King. As Outdated_Bob, you can find me at X. You can find me at Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads, where I don't even know why I'm there. I must have joined a couple of years back and it's still there. So I do post things to that. But my main jam is Facebook for you people who want to, get previews of the show and all that. Check out Facebook for that stuff. Anyway, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you have a favorite app that you listen on, please subscribe or give us a thumbs up or whatever the app tells you to do. Please do that. It really does help. And I guess that's it for now. It's been a lot of fun this week. Wrestling of the past. My name is Bob Smith. In the past, I was with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I was with WCW Magazine. I worked with Sandy Krebs at Wrestling's Main Event Magazine. Worked with Colin Bowman at WCW Magazine. And I also was in the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling and Sports Review Wrestling and Ben Strong Wrestling and Wrestling Superstars and Wrestling Annual and just keep going down the list. My name was in all those books at one point or another. Which book are you working on? Well, I'm working on Inside Wrestling. That's the way it worked back in those days. A little insider jargon for you guys. What does it mean? Nothing. Anyway, we hope you had fun here. Unconventional show about conventions. We'll see you next time. In the words of Ringo Starr, I wish I could do a British accent. I can't imitate him. But he does say peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.